So I've been trading for just over 5 years now, and honestly, in the beginning of my journey, I spent over 2.5 years consistently failing, blowing accounts, making every mistake that I possibly could, and honestly, overall, just struggled to be profitable. But by year 3, something changed. I stopped blowing accounts overall. I stopped taking trades that made me feel stupid. I stopped losing thousands of dollars every single day, and all I did was implement one simple rule. So in this video, I'm going to show you the rule that led to me being profitable, and then break down everything that you can do so that you can avoid these exact same mistakes I made. How many times has this happened to you? You enter a trade and immediately you start getting chopped out, you start holding on to trades for way too long, and eventually, right, like it ends up going your way, but it takes hours to get to that point, and you just get stuck in something like this. It's so frustrating. One of the hardest things that you can possibly figure out is how to get away from this. When I first started trading, this was literally the cause of about 90% of my losses. It was because I was taking trades at the wrong time and not able to actually time an exact entry that could happen every single day. This leads me to the most important rule in trading, which is trend is king. So you've probably already known this rule, but at the end of the day, you're still doing things incorrectly. You still don't actually know how to find this trend, how to actually spot trades with the trend and be able to do this consistently every single day. So that is exactly what I'm going to teach you today. So you got stopped out of this position right here because you tried to enter a position that had absolutely no trend behind it. And this is probably the case for a majority of your losses. It comes down to you're just not entering at the right time. We need to start working on your timing. So the biggest thing that I want you to do is only take trades when you get an absolutely amazing looking trend within your position. So for example, something like this where we can get a very clear idea of where the market is going. Same thing for the upside, right? We need to see a very clear trend before we enter any positions. This is the first most integral step for us to actually take positions and time them correctly. For example, for me, I have around a 70% win rate and my trades go really, really far within my direction. And the reason why that happens is because I'm taking trades that are brutally in trend, right? I'm not taking any trades like the ones that I showed you earlier. For example, the ones that you most likely have taken, where you're taking a trade here, getting just absolutely destroyed, and you're not able to actually maintain that position over a long period of time. So how can we identify this trend? That way we know exactly what to look for. First, I'm going to show you here, and then we're going to actually transfer this over to the real charts so that you can see everything on the actual charts themselves. But first, let's go over here, right? What we need to do is establish a very simple idea of what trend is. This is for you guys that don't actually know how to do this already. But even if you do know how to do this already, trust me, if you're not doing this correctly, it is going to absolutely slam you. So I'd watch this anyways. So we need to see market structure within your trend to be able to actually understand what's going on. And so what market structure looks like is creating these highs, creating these lows, creating these highs, creating these lows, creating these highs, creating these lows. And this structure allows you to actually understand where we're looking to go for your chart. So for example, here we are creating what's called a lower high, and here we are creating a lower low. You guys most likely already know this. This is very, very basic knowledge. But when I show you on the chart, it's going to be pretty interesting what you actually don't know. When we make these lower highs and these lower lows, we are able to actually see exactly where the market is most likely to go. This is where I will find my entries versus where you're finding your entries, which is in the middle of nothing, right? So if I can get a very convincing trend, it gives me a very strong understanding of where I'm most likely going to take this trade. So for example, here's a high, here's a higher low, here's a high, here's another higher low, right? So at every point on this chart right here, I can see specifically where we are in terms of trend and where we're most likely to continue. Now that we have a basic understanding of market structure, let's transfer this over to the charts. When you see it on the charts, it's going to look a little bit more confusing. So I'm going to break it down for you from a top-down angle. That way you're able to see everything and completely understand it. So for example, when we take a look at something like this, you might be thinking, well, yeah, Sean, look, higher highs, higher highs, higher highs, right? So this is technically a trend. Well, look at this right here, right? When we look at this, we see pretty much like a barcode. And so I don't want to be trading when I see a barcode. If I see something like this does not give me the intention that we're most likely going to continue with strength in my direction. The reason why I'm so successful as a trader is because every trade I take is very strongly convinced that it's going to continue going my way and quickly, right? I ride momentum. That's something that you guys probably already know by watching my channel over a long term. So how do we find these points in time? Well, first you want to go to the 1 hour chart. Okay, I always go to the 1 hour to determine what we're actually looking like in terms of trend. And so as you can see, if we go back to today, you already know that based on everything, we probably aren't going to go anywhere. Take a look at this 1 hour chart right here. Is there any actual trend, any actual strong trend that has been established that I can start to go, okay, we're looking like we're going to continue going in this direction? No, right? There's nothing on this chart. As you can see, there's a low created right here. There's like a, decent low created here, but then we have a new high created here. So we're just kind of chopping back and forth, right? We have higher time frame chop. And on higher time frame chop, there's no way you know what's going to happen. And so if we compare this to a different kind of day where we're not having higher time frame chop, so when we see something like this, for example, we can see that we're creating new highs, creating new lows, creating a new high up here, a new low right here, new high here, new low here. So we're creating consistent higher highs and higher lows. The first thing you want to do is establish an actual trend, a strong and actual considerable trend on higher time frame. That way you know, okay, this move is probably going to go even further into my direction whenever I want to take that trade. And if you struggle to find that higher time frame trend, one thing you can do is add this indicator on your chart, which is going to be the moving average exponential. So click that right there. And what you're going to do is change this setting from 9 to 200. So now we have the 200 EMA on our chart. This kind of gives you a top-down 1,000-foot overview of exactly where we are in terms of your trend. So anything below this blue line is a considerable downtrend. Anything above the line is a considerable uptrend. So if you were looking for an entry right around these parts, right? Remember, I told you, we are now in that considerable uptrend. We see that we have these higher highs and higher lows being created. This EMA kind of confirms that too. It's not something that I would guarantee and keep on your chart no matter what, but it is something that can kind of help you with understanding where trend is currently. And as you can see, there are points in time where we actually do reverse off this anyways, so it could be something to put on your chart that's pretty useful. But for the most part, what I want to help you guys with is understanding that you do not want to get yourself caught in this. If you get yourself caught in this, you will most likely kill yourself over the long run, and I don't want you to do that. I need you to pay attention and wait for times like this where you can see consistent highs and lows being made. That way you know exactly where we're most likely going to go next. That's the first thing that you got to do. The second thing that I would recommend for finding these trends and finding these entries that will actually stick long term is to focus on something that I like to call momentum candles. Right? Momentum candles are pretty much my most important factor when it comes to my trading. And I only like to take trades if I can get at least 3 of these candles in a row. So what that means is when we look at this specific chart right here, I'm looking for first, higher time frame trend, second, lower time frame trend. Can we see an actual trend on this chart? What we then need to see is 3 consecutive candles that have strong momentum behind them. And so what strong momentum looks like is going to be something like this. When we see candles that have giant candle bodies like this shows that we have a lot of buy-side momentum. So a lot of buyers are stepping in here and showing that we have quite a bit of that buy-side strength. So if we can get lower time frame trend, higher time frame trend, and start to get these momentum candles to come into play, we can then start to see exactly what positions are going to work out best. But for example, for this example right here, we don't have trend. There's no way you can take any of these positions because you don't have trend. You don't know where you're most likely going to go on this chart. But days like this where we see we have momentum on our side, we see that we have very clear trend created. We're above the 200 EMA. On higher time frames, we have trend as well. Now we can pretty much find ourselves an entry that makes the most sense. So for example, here, it doesn't matter what strategy you're using, right? This is a strategy that helps you out with catching the right timing. So for example, let's say that we want a pre-market high break strategy. Well, okay, we have our pre-market high right here. We know that if we break and retest the pre-market high, we should see a continuation. How do I know that this trade is actually going to be a good one based on the momentum though? Well, if we break this high, one thing I want to see is momentum candles. As you can see, these momentum candles are really strong right here. This gives us an understanding that, hey, we're probably going to continue to the upside, especially since we have higher time frame trend with us. But we retest this candle right here. Now, what am I looking for to establish another momentum candle? Very, very simple. We just need to break previous candles highs or overall highs. If we can break those two things, that shows that this momentum candle is very strong and gives us a continuation chance. So it doesn't matter what strategy you're trading, no matter what, you need to make sure that you are in the right side of trend and you're holding as long as you possibly can in trend. And so the only time that I would actually look to exit my trade is if we can break trend to the other side, which would be right here, right? We end up breaking trend and looking to flip to the downside. So this is where I would end up exiting. And as you can see, if you use this trend strategy to implement into your already existing strategy, you can multiply your gains by 10x. You can also multiply your successful entries by 10x because you're not going to be caught in something like this anymore where you don't really know what's going on. Days of getting stuck in something like this are over. Follow everything that you just watched in this video. You will then know exactly how trend works. You'll know exactly when to get into a position and when to avoid trading in the market. We want to avoid something like this. And if we can get 3 momentum candles in a row that show that we have a lot of strength in our direction, along with higher time frame trend and lower time frame trend, then we can very clearly take a position and avoid all of this garbage. And if you're still struggling with all of this and you feel like you're right here, but you just need more help to push you to that profitability, I've taken over 1,000 students to profitability and over 400 of those students to over $10,000 per month as a trader. We get thousands of applications and I personally look through every single one that comes through. So if you think that you're a good fit to work with me and you genuinely know that you are this close to scaling to that $10,000 per month mark as a trader, then apply down below. And if this trend strategy was awesome for you, but you need an actual real strategy behind it, click this video right here that's popping up on the screen. It goes over my entire strategy from start to finish. And I guarantee you this strategy right here will help you 10x your trading. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Later.